A lot of rumblings about Matthew Stafford coming back to the NFC North.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, everybody? We got yourself a Thursday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Matt Derry with you. It is February the 20th on a Thursday and a Friday, February 21st. Thanks for making us your first listen. Thanks for checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Thank you to those of you that watch and subscribe on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Thank you for doing that. Damon Amendolara, one half of the DA show with Babchick on the morning show on Sirius XM's Mad Dog Sports Radio. The DA is going to join us momentarily on the program, get a little national perspective on the Lions, talk about Lions and Eagles, Detroit in 2025, everything else on this very podcast, on this very program. We will talk with DA today. Shout out to a couple of our everydayers that are out there that watch and listen to the podcast daily. My man Cliff Johnson hit me up on LinkedIn. The great Nathan Pig from the Lions. We love Nathan. Great dude. He loves the show. We love him. Thank you for checking us out, Nathan. Appreciate you as always. All right, before we get to Damon Amendolara, I want to give him plenty of time on the show today. There's not any new reports. There's not any new, this is going to happen, rumblings, but there's a lot of whispering going on around the NFL and from some people that I've talked to that Kevin O'Connell knows that his Vikings team is on the cusp of something really good after what happened last year. And there's some whispers and rumblings that Kevin O'Connell doesn't want Sam Darnold back at quarterback, but would rather make a trade for one Matthew Stafford. So Stafford being back in the division would definitely make things interesting. There have already been reports that the Vikings and Giants have talked about the number 3 overall pick and that New York is interested in trading for Stafford. But again, that trade hasn't happened yet. We've got the combine next week where all the GMs will be in Indianapolis and be able to talk face-to-face and some deals get done there. But how crazy would that be for a Stafford, TJ Hawkinson reunion in Minnesota? Kelly comes back east, and that would make for 2 very interesting games every year between the Lions and Vikings. Would Minnesota be upgrading by getting number 9 in there? Absolutely. I don't know what the Rams are doing. I get that the Rams want to cut some salary and the Rams need to get a little bit more salary cap compliant. But a lot of their young players, at least on LA, on defense at least, a lot of their defensive players are very young. Very young. They have drafted very well on defense over the last couple of years, but they want to trade Cooper Kupp. And now they've been talking to Stafford about redoing his deal and figuring out a contract for the future for him. And it doesn't sound like they can come to anything. Now, do I think this is going to happen? I don't know. It's very difficult to consummate yet another Matthew Stafford trade. And what are the Vikings willing to give up to get him? And they also have J.J. McCarthy waiting in the wings. You trade for Stafford, what does that mean for McCarthy? But I'm hearing a lot of whispers about Minnesota going for it and going and getting Stafford. But again, you're right. They just drafted McCarthy. Will he be healthy? A lot in play there. We'll ask Damon about it coming up next. Also, loved seeing today on prideofdetroit.com an article about Carlton Davis was on a podcast and said Dan Campbell was his favorite coach that he ever played with or played for. He played for Gus Malzahn in college. He played for Lovey, not Lovey Smith, for Todd Bowles in Tampa and others, and Bruce Arians. But Carlton Davis said he loves playing for Dan Campbell and the amount of accountability and how Campbell has the backs of his players, loves playing for him. This is a free agent. I keep saying it. The Lions have got to bring back. And the fact that the cornerback just adored playing for Campbell will help the Lions' cause in bringing him back. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. All right. Damon Amendolara is going to join us next from Mad Dog Sports Radio. We will get DA's thoughts on the Lions. We'll do that coming up right here on Locked On Lions on a Thursday. And this message comes from you to you from our sponsor today, and that is Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you can get real-time updates on their progress as you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, as promised, let's bring in DA Damon Amendolara, Sirius XM's Mad Dog Sports Radio morning show. Of course, a DA show with Babchick. Love getting Damon's thoughts once in a while on what's going on with the Lions. And he's sporting, for those of you watching on our YouTube channel, a Lions Dan Campbell Christmas sweater. Thank you for playing the part.
No problem. Derry, I'm here for you and all Lions fans. I was pulling for you guys. I was pulling for the Lions this entire season. And I figured, you know what? Let's get a little good mojo going on. So for my Christmas sweater party for the show, I went and I found this bad boy, and it is an ugly Christmas sweater. It is Lions Honolulu blue, but it also has Dan Campbell and, if you can see, Jared Goff, and they're doing the Step Brothers photo from, Will Ferrell fame. So unfortunately, it didn't work in the postseason, so I'm probably going to have to burn it. But you gave me an excuse to wear it before I got to burn it.
I love it. I love it. Appreciate you, man. Listen to your show, and I do when I'm in the car in the mornings, and you guys have a lot of fun. It's almost like going into next year, and you'll be talking so much NFL because that's obviously what drives numbers and drives, people listening. But the Lions maybe won't be as chic next year to talk about as maybe Philly, Washington, right? Let's say the Vikings, before you came on, I was mentioning, what if the Vikings go get Matthew Stafford? Yet they still won 15 games, right? Do you still view that door and window as wide open here in Detroit?
Oh, yeah. It's wide open, not only because they're a good football team, but because we didn't get to see what a true Lions squad looked like in the postseason because of all of the injuries. But I think you're absolutely right. You are going to have a healthy dose of cynicism going into next year from the people that picked the Lions to go to the Super Bowl or picked them to go to, or to win the Super Bowl, because now we saw expectations met and then a collapse in the playoffs, which is a lot different than being on the front end of a feel-good story. And they were going into last year. They were 2 years ago before they even made it, that NFC Championship game run and the loss to San Francisco. And now you have two really difficult pills to swallow in back-to-back postseasons. So chic is a good word. The last 2 years they've been a chic pick going into the new year, and I don't think that's going to be the case coming into this season.
But they're still America's team.
They are the team that everybody wanted to see in the playoffs. They're the team everybody wanted to see. I mean, I was on Radio Row in New Orleans, and there was this kind of collective sigh that we got Chiefs and Eagles again. Now, the game obviously was terrible, but nobody really wanted to see a rematch, and there was massive Chiefs fatigue, and everybody to a man seemed to want Bills and Lions. And even if you only got one of those, it was going to be okay. And for the Lions to not even make the NFC Championship game, that was a frustration level for a lot of media, and I just think general fandom, that people wanted to see something fresh, and the Lions were an America's team type of story.
Obviously, losing to Washington in that divisional round game, giving up the 45 burger and everything else. You mentioned it before, a healthy Lions defense, getting Aiden Hutchinson back. I don't know if you ran into him down at Radio Row or not, but healthy defense, yes. But I think also retaining guys like Carlton Davis, bringing in some others, and maybe they don't take as much money because they want to play for Dan Campbell. What does that say about, that the head man is still there? And I will talk about the coordinators in a second.
I think it's the most significant piece of this puzzle. There's a lot of good players, and the front office has been elite in the last 5 years building up this roster. But the single most important piece of this, the single most important quotient, is clearly Dan Campbell. Guys love him. Guys want to play for him. He has proven to be able to get the most out of his guys. 2 bad playoff losses, no doubt about it. Those are dents on his resume. At the same time, if you are any of those Lions players, I would imagine that number 1 and number 2, the reasons you want to play for the Lions is it is an amazing football town, and those Lions fans have supported the team through thick and thin, and right now it's on fire. And number 2, or number 1 and 1B, is going to be Dan Campbell and what he does inside that locker room and getting these guys ready and wearing his heart on his sleeve. So losing coordinators is always tough, but for the Lions, everything, the genesis of everything is Dan Campbell.
Damon Amendolara with us, DA Show with Babchick on Sirius XM's Mad Dog Sports Radio, channel 86 every morning. What about the Jared Goff, scenarios? Obviously, he's back. It was a top 5 MVP candidate, yet there are some people, or not candidates, he was in the top 5. But there's people that say, hey, they can't win with him. They won't win a Super Bowl with him. He'll take them only as far as Jared Goff can take them. Did you feel any differently about him after the Washington game?
I was extremely frustrated by Jared Goff in that game. Extremely. Now, it might not have mattered because if a defense is going to give up 38 points, 7 of those were a pick 6, it really might not matter how well a quarterback plays, and nobody should expect Jared Goff to be winning 38 to 35 shootouts or 42 to 38 shootouts. At the same time, that was a Lions team where the game got away from them because of Jared Goff, and that's a frustrating reality. But when he throws the pick 6, it is a moment where a quarterback is chasing the game, and Goff has this in him where he can play a measured brand of football, even an exciting brand of football. But if he suddenly clicks into the oh crap panic mode, there's a 5 interception day there. And the 3 interceptions in that game for Goff, namely the pick 6, which is again just a bad decision, and it comes after the fumble, the sack, which, okay, maybe you could excuse that. But he's starting to compound mistakes there. And so there's the strip sack. That's a problem. Then he's chasing the game and he throws the pick 6. It's a double problem. And then the interception at the end of the half. All you need to do with that throw is make sure it's out in front and not behind. And if you miss it, you miss it. But at least you're not missing late. And he misses late. And again, it is a forcing of a moment that looked to be too big for him. And so I was really frustrated because I thought, if you eliminated 2 of those 3 mistakes in the first half, the Lions can still win that football game. But all 3 are impossible to overcome. Impossible. And 2 of the 3, I thought, were unnecessary mistakes that he made. And so they're unforced errors. And I still, you have to believe you can win with Jared Goff because you win 15 games, you get the 1 seed. You're in the NFC Championship game 2 years ago with a lead in the second half. There's plenty of evidence to suggest they can win with Jared Goff, but that game against Washington will forever bother me because it was unforced errors by a guy that is entailed and entrusted not to make those mistakes.
No, there's no question about it. And for the most part this year, and especially with you look at his passer rating numbers through the roof, he played his worst at the worst time. Damon Amendolara, of course, with us, DA Show on Sirius XM in the mornings on Mad Dog Sports Radio. You look at this division and everything else, and Ben Johnson now being in it. But how do you kind of look at it now as we're in February for next year? And obviously, we don't know who Minnesota's quarterback is going to be.
Yeah, the Vikings have to be considered a massive unknown because I highly doubt it's Sam Darnold, and so it's likely to be J.J. McCarthy or another stand-in for J.J. until he's ready, and J.J. McCarthy has taken no NFL snaps. He's coming off a significant injury. So we know that Darnold was amazing last year, and everything kind of fit around him. They've got great wide receivers. They had a defense that was very proactive in creating turnovers, and they benefited from good coaching, and they benefited from a great home field advantage and a comeback player of the year season from Darnold. But, can you replicate Sam Darnold's season next year? I highly doubt it. And I don't think you can replicate that win total again. So I would say that the Lions are not going to be as good. Bears should be better than they were last year, but what exactly means better? Is that a 10-win team? Is that a 9-win team? Is that a playoff team? Or is that just a well-coached team that's starting to grow together. Obviously, they had to make that hire in Chicago. They got the guy they wanted. It was a smart hire. It hurts the Lions. But that's not a team yet that I believe is going to be competing to win a division. So it comes down to the Lions and Packers. I was very high on the Packers going into last season. What they had done in the playoffs against Dallas, what I saw in terms of a complete roster, adding Josh Jacobs in the offseason, I said this team has every needed weapon to not only compete for the division, but compete for the NFC. And I picked the Packers to go to the Super Bowl out of the NFC, and that looked ridiculous all season long. And the reason was they were good enough to beat bad teams. They were not good enough to beat any of the good teams. And that is going to leave a bad taste in my mouth going to next year. I didn't like that Jordan Love didn't rise to the occasion when needed. I didn't like that Matt LaFleur couldn't get his guys to the next level against the Lions, against the Vikings, against the Eagles. I didn't like the way that they ended the season in the playoffs in Philadelphia. So I take it personally that last year they were good enough to be much better than that, and I looked like the fool. So I can't really believe in the Packers either, even though I think they're very talented yet again. It leaves the Lions. They are once again the power brokers in the NFC North.
And the Lions, it's kind of interesting. I read something today. Chicago could be interested in Myles Garrett. I've seen Green Bay, maybe Minnesota, the Lions. I mean, it's almost like every team in the division has been rumored at least to have lobbed a phone call to Andrew Berry to go get Myles Garrett. Could you imagine Garrett and Hutchinson on the same team?
It would be incredible. Those bookend pass rushers would be two of the best we've ever seen together on a defensive line. Every team should make the call to the Cleveland Browns to see what it was going to cost to get Myles Garrett, because how often are you ever going to get a future Hall of Fame pass rusher in his prime available to you? Those guys, it does not happen. It's quarterback and pass rusher right now. Maybe you'd throw left tackle and shutdown corner into the mix, but quarterback and pass rusher, the two elite needed positions that are so hard to get, and you got one available in Myles Garrett. I would be surprised if the Packers do it, because the Packers aren't usually a team that will buy high, and it's going to take a big purchase price to get Myles Garrett. So I'd be very surprised. The Bears would not surprise me. I think there's desperation within the organization to finally turn the thing around, and Garrett's a good example, except they kind of got burned to the Khalil Mack situation, and I'm not sure if they're willing to give up multiple ones or whatever it's going to take again for a pass rusher, considering they just did this and it did not turn them into a winner. But whoever gets Myles Garrett is going to get an absolute wrecking ball. And if it was the Lions that could do it, my goodness, him and Hutchinson would be unstoppable.
But as you know, Brad Holmes loves the draft, and you're going to be part of the picks. And we played a clip yesterday on the show. He was on Channel 4 here, the local NBC affiliate, and he just perks up talking about the draft. It just might not be in his DNA to do that, where he's thinking, no, we're going to hold on to our picks, and this is how we build our team. Do you like that consistency that Holmes has shown? Because he hasn't been one to dip into the gigantic free agent pool.
You can't argue with the roster build with the Lions because they just keep hitting on all these draft picks. It'd be one thing if you had a GM and he's going bust on a number of his picks and he's not parting with those picks. But Holmes in this front office has been phenomenal. I mean, look at how many stud players they have drafted over the last 4 to 5 years. So I can't blame them. I mean, if it's working, and we know that all of these teams that compete year in, year out, they nail the draft. The Chiefs and the Eagles are the two best run organizations in the league, and it was not a coincidence. They met in 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls. Howie Roseman's the best talent evaluator in the NFL, and that Eagles roster just keeps proving that they can find talent, draft talent, develop talent, sign talent at every stinking position. And Brett Veach in Kansas City is the same way. His draft 2 years ago is a young class now that's in year 3, and all they've ever done, that draft class, and I think there's 6 of them that play regular snaps for the Chiefs, have gone to 3 straight Super Bowls, and that's every year they've been in the league, led by Trent McDuffie and Karlaftis. So they know how to keep replenishing the roster, and the Lions are the same way. So you really can't blame Holmes in the front office if they want to hold on to the picks, because it works when they do.
I want to ask you about Detroit and Philly and the possibility that the two teams could meet in week 1. We'll do that with Damon Amendolara coming up next. But first, Locked On Lions today brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. NBA action is back. You saw it last night. The Hornets going into LA and beating the Lakers. If you had Charlotte plus the points on FanDuel, you were a winner. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off, want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action with FanDuel. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. You got to love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Plus, the app, easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Check him out mornings with Babchick. It is Damon Amendolara, the DA show with Babchick on Mad Dog Sports Radio. Mornings from, are you 6 to 10 or 6 to 9? I'm
6
confused.
to 9 Eastern. Yes.
Is
6
it
to 9
9?
Eastern. Yeah. I've always been 6 to 10 doing
I know.
mornings going back to 610. I should say going back. Well, yeah, to 610 Sports in Kansas City. And then at CBS Sports Radio, all my morning shows have been 6 to 10. But no, at Sirius, they stop us at 9. And I'm not going to argue with the bosses.
No. Well, why would you? Plus, you're leading into Adam Shine, who, by the way, and you and I are both Adam Shine fans, as Syracuse grads and WAER grads, but Adam did not have Dan Campbell on his Coach of the Year ballot. So
wow, I didn't know that.
He did not.
Oh boy,
there were two. It was him, and then the guy. Oh God, the writer in Buffalo, whose name escapes me. Older writer, did not have. Yeah, did not have Dan Campbell in his top 5. So
wow, I got to talk to Shine about that, man. Oh,
but he had Sean McVay on there, and you know what it was. I'm sure McVay went on Shine show. Sean, my friend, right? Love him. The only guy that still loves Aaron Rodgers is Adam Shine. He's the last one left.
There's very few of those. Very few these days. It's a lonely island.
Wait, you grew up you and Babchick are both Jet fans, right?
No, I grew up in a Giants household, actually.
Giants, okay.
My dad's an old school Giants fan dating back to the Yankee Stadium days.
That's right.
Yeah.
So are they going to trade for Stafford? Is that what you want?
No, I don't think it makes any sense to give up any draft collateral for a quarterback at this point in time. I think if you're the Giants, you either draft your guy, Shador or Cam Ward, if either one of those guys is available at number 3. And if not, then you take Travis Hunter, or if Abdul Carter is there, even better. And you sign a bridge quarterback, and you're kind of punting until next season to get your quarterback, or you draft a Jackson Dart or somebody else later on in this draft. I think the Giants should draft a QB in every draft. I think we're at the point in time where you just have to, even if it's the 3rd round, the 4th round, just keep collecting guys because you got to find one at some point in time. But no, I don't think trading draft collateral, if you want to sign a free agent like a Darnold and just say, okay, you're the bridge at the moment until we can, get our young guy, that's fine. But do not trade away the future for a quarterback now, because they're just not Matthew Stafford away from being competitive.
Lions and Eagles, there's a chance that could be the opening game to start the season if Detroit and Philly, if that's what the league wants. Obviously, there's some other matchups. Washington would be decent, Dallas, the Bears, Denver, but I think Lions-Eagles would be awesome. As you look at those two teams, are those the two teams you think could be in the NFC Championship game this coming season again?
No doubt. No doubt. The Philadelphia Eagles, and they're going to lose some guys due to free agency in the offseason, but they have proven to just keep reloading. Now, there's always this thing with the Eagles where they're kind of combustible, and whether it's Sirianni, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, the loss of Kellen Moore, whatever that thing is that could derail them, the Eagles have proven that they can be combustible, but their roster is ridiculous. Top to bottom, it continues to be ridiculous. It is hard to find a weakness. They're too deep at every single position. And the Lions have the next best roster in the NFC. And the Lions are young and in their prime, and they're still in this window of being one of the best teams in all of the NFL. So, yeah, those are the two best teams of the NFC, and I think there's probably a drop-off after that. You got to see how the free agency, unfolds. You got to see how the draft goes. But at where we sit in late February, those are the two best rosters in the NFC.
You look at the Lions and you go, all right, opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, at the moment would be Zadarius Smith if they want to bring him back. Defensive tackle, they could lose Onwuzurike. Reader makes a lot of money and did not have a great year. But do they want to emulate Damon what Philly did, which was, I've never seen a Super Bowl like that where a D line just completely obliterated an O line like that, and maybe that's the model now.
Well, they had numbers and they had the coordinator. I mean, Vic Fangio was a wizard the entire season. It is amazing that he's bounced around as he has over the course of his NFL career, because when he got a roster like the Eagles, he turned them into just killers. And I got to speak to a number of the Eagles players, and specifically the defense in the secondary, a bunch of them, on the Monday night before the Super Bowl. That was the opening night ceremonies, and I was doing some work for NFL radio. So we got some one-on-ones, and off the air, you should have seen these guys talk about Vic Fangio. Like, they looked at him as he was the oracle. He uncomplicated everything for them and then unlocked their potential. And it was not easy at first. I mean, he challenged them hard, and they were all like, it was tough. The first couple of weeks of training camp, really tough. Off season, really tough. Early on in the season, really tough. They said, but to a man, he unlocked everything for them. So he was the key. And as long as they have him, their defense is going to be ferocious. But yeah, they also have waves of pass rushers. And that is what has always discombobulated or short-circuited great quarterbacks, especially in big games. The 2 Giants wins over the Patriots was all about a pass rush. The Seahawks win over the Broncos and Peyton Manning all over the place. That was a complete pass rush du jour from the Seattle Seahawks and Legion of Boom. Time and time again, if you want to take out a Hall of Fame QB, look at what the Buccaneers did to the Chiefs in 2020. It has always been, if you wanted to break the will of the greatest quarterbacks, the only way you can do it is by getting after them in waves of pass rushers, and that's what the Eagles did to Mahomes.
Final thing, you're in the New York, New Jersey area. How will Aaron Glenn do with the Jets? And it's been a long time since they've been relevant.
I like Aaron Glenn's demeanor. I've always found Glenn to be really sharp, confident without being egotistical. I think he's a fantastic choice. The problem is the Jets' dysfunction swallows up just about everybody. Yeah. And, the story about Woody Johnson's kids, it's like kind of a tongue-in-cheek ha-ha, but it's really quite the window into dysfunction. The idea that you could have 2 teenage kids and they are actually informing decisions. And the Jets ended up walking it back, and Woody walked it back afterwards. But in the story that The Athletic published, the Jets had a spokesperson that admitted, yes, we do listen to the kids. We're just not making our decisions based on them. And it's like, that's bad enough, man.
Right.
The fact that there's 19-year-old kids walking around the office and you're listening to them, even if it's only part of the decision, is really bad. And Woody's a disaster. So it's hard to distance yourself from it. But I think a first good step is telling Aaron Rodgers to take a hike, because if you can do that, then you kind of keep some semblance of credibility. And they did that. So early returns are good from Glenn. We'll see if he can survive the Jets' ridiculousness.
Damon, great to see you. Next move for you, I'd like you to become the athletic director at our alma mater. Fix that.
Well, I'll let you know if they give me a ring. I'll let you know. If you do have an audience that's watching on YouTube, I would love it if they could pop over to my YouTube channel as well. Just check out at Damon Amendo, which is my YouTube channel handle, and subscribe over there, because I try to do NFL football deep dives throughout the offseason as well. We'll be looking at the draft and free agency, etc. But it's really an awesome platform. I love doing the videos. We do a live show on Sunday nights, Watch DA Live. So YouTube is where it's at. And if we're listening or you're watching here on YouTube, that would be very cool to come join me.
You got to watch the Sunday show. I have great guests right after the games in the fall, especially. Good stuff. DA, great to see you, brother.
You too, man. Thanks, buddy.
Damon Amendolara with us on a Thursday, Locked On Lions.